What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to ICNV Driversedition, and today we're gonna have a fun conversation. I've been reached out to by a lot of you guys when I talk about moving Zeus. Yes, I'm gonna move Zeus. The question is when and what's taking me so long. So what I thought about doing today was, well, actually somebody asked, what is the process you go through when you try to move your car or acquire a new car? And this is probably the reason why it's taking so long for me to move Zeus. So to share this with you, I think we got to talk about what I go through, what I look at when I look to decide to get a new car. And that will help you understand why Zeus is still in my possession, actually why I like him so much, and why it's been bittersweet trying to move him, because every time I think I'm ready to jump, I get back in the driver's seat. And I can tell you right now, I have so much fun and I still love this car. If you don't already know, my name is Sho. This is ICNV Driversedition. This is my car Zeus, and we are part of an interactive community, which means if you hit me up on any one of my social media platforms or in the comments below of any one of my videos, I will do my best to respond. And if the topic you bring up is interesting enough, I may even shoot a video on it. But we're also a car enthusiast network for people that love to drive cars and make you turn your head that aren't your everyday people movers. So when you think about that, if you're one of those people that love to get behind the wheels of cars that you just don't see every day, or that you just want to drive and have fun, lock into the channel. We got more interesting content coming your way, and we're going to have some fun doing it. So don't miss out. But let's move forward. So when we talk about getting into a new car, the first thing I typically do is figure out what's my price range. I decided to switch gears and change the environment. I think it's so much easier to have this conversation right here, and I can show you what I'm talking about a little bit more better without being distracted from the driving experience. So now let's dive into it like this. For the Corvette C8, in order for this to make sense to me or to make sense to you guys, I'm looking at moving Zeus, but I'm looking at moving Zeus in a way that's comparable to what I spend today. So for me, I would have to take average insurance costs plus normal cost of repairs, or should I say servicing and maintenance. But in the grand scheme of things, I want to look at the money I'm spending to make sure it's comparable, what I'm paying more or what I'm paying less. And so for that purpose, when I look at Zeus, my average oil change cost is anywhere between $150 to $189. I've come out of pocket for repairs that I've been billed for about $2,000, but I've only actually spent out of pocket not covered by warranty on any repair, and I've only had one, and that was about $1,000. To have the trans filter or the DCT filter, for those that want to be technical, to have that filter replaced at the dealership is anywhere between $500 and $750, depending on what your dealership charges. And then on the vice versa end, to have the fluid flushed and serviced and so forth with the filter replaced is anywhere between $750 and $1,000. Now, most of these repairs you can do yourself, and I know we're going to have those guys out there to say, well, I can take care of this myself, and I felt comfortable doing this, so your costs and averages won't be about the same. But once we look at it from that perspective, I've had Zeus a total of 4 years working on 5. When you look at my insurance costs is somewhere right around $2,300 a year. So right now, we can say I spend $2,300 a year for insurance. When I look at insurance quotes or ranges for C8s, and you can Google search this, or you can actually do Ask Gemini, Siri, and so forth. The lowest has been reported about $1,700 a year, but most of those are restrictive driving policies, which I do not utilize. And the high end is around $3,500 to $4,000 a year on the base C8. And then when you look at oil change costs, which is once a year, the annual servicing of, let's just say, a trans filter, which is about $500. I want you to understand, they say the average ownership cost over 5 years, when you're looking at just maintenance and repairs on things that should go bad, they say the average cost will be about $5,000 to $9,000 based off how much you drive. If you're not putting 6,000 miles on your car a year, you can expect your overall coverage after 5 years to be somewhere around $5,000. If you're putting over 6,000, somewhere around, let's just say 8 to 10,000 a year, your estimated cost would be somewhere around $9,000 over the course of 5 years. If you double that to a 10-year cost, let's just say about 18 grand at max, what you're going to pay out of pocket for the Corvette C8. On the low end, somewhere around 10. That will be your ownership cost over a 10-year period. Now, I know most people won't even consider owning the car that long. They may not even look at it that long. But we're going to say repair cost alone will be somewhere between $5,000 to $9,000 for 5 years. And then if you add on the insurance cost, let's just say in my case, $2,300 times 5, you're going to look to be somewhere right around $11,500 spent on insurance through the course of a 5-year ownership period. So overall, to own the Corvette C8 for 5 years, it would be somewhere around $20,000, give or take $2,000. So when I look at other cars, I now go into this factor of adding up the same cost money-wise. I'm trying to stay around $20,000 or less for my next ownership of a car over a 4 to 5 year window, although I probably won't keep it more than 2 years. But that's how I view my car, because I've already spent over a 5-year ownership cost. I'm looking to spend 20 grand. So now that we have a baseline for how much money I'm willing to spend, what out there less than, let's just say, $110,000 can I actually get into, although I don't want to spend $100,000. So let's say what's floating around the $90,000 price range or less that I'm willing to drive for the next 2 to 3 years. So I think the first runner-up would be a Mercedes-AMG GTC. Now, you could typically find these cars right around $90,000 to $100,000 in price range. I'll be looking more on the lower end, the $90,000, maybe even upper $88,000, $89,000 price range for a car. I target the GTC because I've had a Mercedes before. And the one thing about Mercedes is you get nice build quality with the vehicle you purchase. You get the leather dashboards. And I mean, if you haven't been inside a Mercedes, you get all of these luxury features with the car, which I am all about. I love luxury features and toys. So you would get that. But not only that, the AMGT lineup offers performance within the cars. And looking at a GTC, which puts on 550 horsepower and like 500 pounds of torque, that's a nice little step up from the Corvette C8. And not only that, there are also tune packages out there you can look to put on your car anywhere between $1,500 and $3,000 that can boost that 550 horsepower up to the 650 to 670 horsepower range, the same as a C8Z06, and not really cause any extra wear or tear concerns for the car, although you may have the detuning when you go through the registration and things of that nature. But that's just normal stuff for us guys who are into the performance boosting upgrade market. But I'm saying that so we can now dive into an AMG GTC. So looking at an AMG GTC, what I would typically do is go out and check on my insurance provider and see how much would it cost me to get insurance on an AMG GTC. Well, just so you know, right now, when I quoted my insurance guy, they told me it depends on the car and the options, which, you know me, the more options, the better. So for me to get behind the wheels of AMG GTC, I've been quoted $23.89 for the year, and I've been quoted $29.07, depending on the options on the car. So insurance costs right now, based off what I'm paying for my current Corvette, will go up at a minimum $89, possibly $600. Just looking at, like I said before, the average insurance cost of a Mercedes AMG GTC is anywhere between $2,300 and $4,000 a year. The maximum we've heard or that comes up on the site is someone is paying $7,000 per year or let's just say $7,000 worth of premium for this insurance that's out there, and somebody will actually qualify to pay it. With that being said, like I was trying to tell people before in the car community, that a lot of times people believe they can't afford to own these cars, when realistically, you might can. Now, for some odd reason, with the Mercedes-AMG GT, they said based off 15,000 miles being driven a year, you can expect to pay somewhere between $3,000 to $300 a year for maintenance and servicing. Now, I want to make sure you understand that, because the AMG GTC requires an oil change every 8,000 to 10,000 miles. So if you're doing 15,000 miles worth of driving, you're going to end up paying for 2 oil changes, which the average oil change cost for AMG GTC or any pretty much Mercedes AMG GT is anywhere between $300 and $500. Now, the information provided by the AMG GT is that your average cost of ownership for 10 years would be somewhere right around $16,076. So let's just say $16,100 for a nice round number. Now, this is crucial because the Mercedes AMG GT has different service intervals and different years. The servicing cost is going to be a lot different than the Corvette C8. There will be some years where you may only end up paying like $900 in servicing, and that's cool. You may have to just do an oil change, a brake fluid flush, and that's it. But then there will be other years where you may have to come out of pocket about $4,000, and that's the ouch. Many of you are actually going to sit there and say. And the ouch on that $4,000 cost is because somewhere between the first 6 years of ownership on the Mercedes AMG GT, they say somewhere in that timeline, you're going to have to replace brake pads and rotors, depending on the actual brake pads and rotors you have on a car. That can be anywhere from $1,000 to $2,500 for the brake pads and rotor replacement, along with the other oil change, trans flush, and so forth of that nature, because I think it all comes around the same timeline. But in that interval, you're going to pay close to $4,000. Some locations, that's a $4,100 charge. So they actually say that the lowest cost you can expect to pay in 1 year may be $644. The highest cost you can expect to pay in a year will be somewhere around $4,139. Same as we said before, we expect tire replacements and so forth, which are about $1,200 to $2,000 for a set of tires. And then we're also looking at other ownership costs. Because of the maintenance intervals, that you will probably spend a little bit less. So it just depends on the timeline and the maintenance that has been done to the car already. On average, over the course of 10 years, you can expect to pay somewhere right around $16,000 for ownership of this car in maintenance costs and repairs, or basic repairs that are expected to be done on the car throughout the course of this timeline. So with that being said, if I look at getting a used Mercedes AMG GTC, which would be something I would consider, I can expect to pay $7,200 on insurance. And let's just say I have to take on, let's just say the 5-year ownership cost repairs, which would be $11,000. Let's subtract out of that 3 years worth of oil changes. To own the Mercedes AMG GT over, let's just say, a 5-year window. So on the low end could be $9,900 to somewhere on the high end, which can be somewhere around 16 grand. I would say let's just target the middle of that point. If I was to guess, I would say $12,000. And that's for the Mercedes AMG GTC. Now, another car I was considering was the Porsche 911 4S, because I can see them in a mid 90 range to high 90s and low $100,000 range. But again, I don't want to go over 100 grand. So just keeping that in mind, the Porsche 911 Carrera 4S, I have not actually personally got an insurance quote on in the past year and some change. But the last time I looked at that, I was told somewhere right around $3,050 a year for the year with insurance costs. Now, the thing about that, they said the average cost for servicing on the Porsche would be anywhere between $2,900 to about $4,100 a year, based off ownership costs over the course of 5 to 10 years. And they say on average, they expect to spend somewhere between $1,735 a year but you probably spend $3,511 in a good year on preventive maintenance. So keep that in mind. So with the 911 Carrera S, they're saying over the course of 10 years, you can expect to spend somewhere right around $14,000 on ownership of this vehicle for maintenance costs and preventive repairs and so forth. That's not a bad number, I'm guessing, considering the C8 is somewhere around 10 and the Mercedes-AMG GT was somewhere right around 16,000 for maintenance costs and so forth. I didn't dive into what specific maintenance needs to be done when, but like I stated before, they did say that you can expect to spend $1,735 normally for repair costs, and then somewhere right around $3,511 has been reported somewhere around the highs for most of the maintenance, preventive maintenance done over that timeline. So again, just like the Mercedes-AMG GTC, I'm expecting that a lot of the Porsche maintenance is done in service intervals and specific things are required to be done, brake replacement, tires, and so forth. All of that should be in that cost as well. This is not one of the high horsepower cars that I could consider in this price range, but they say average insurance cost is anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000 a year, with people paying somewhere right around $7,000 a year for insurance on a Porsche. Now, I know that goes into repair costs and things of that nature in case of damages and so forth, yada, 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 but that's something to actually consider. So at the end of the day, if I look at the $3,000 price range, which is one of the highest insurance quotes I've gotten so far for any of the cars I've mentioned thus far, you're talking about over the course of, let's say, 3 years, that's just $9,000 in insurance alone. And then when you look at the repair costs over the next 3 years, you're talking about an additional $5,000, $5,400 to be exact, in cost. And let's just say on the high end, like 2 years of normal service in the 1,800 times 2, plus 1 year at the $3,500 range. So let's just say a high period of $7,100 for preventive maintenance and costs, plus the $9,000. So we're looking at $16,000 for ownership over 3 years, knocking that down to a possible $14,000. So we're looking at anywhere between $14,000 to $16,000 of guesstimation on my part for a Porsche 911 Carrera S for ownership. Another car falling into this price range that I may consider would be an Aston Martin DB11 or even an Aston Martin Vantage. Now, the Aston Martin Vantage has the same servicing intervals and cost as the Mercedes-AMG GTC. So the question now just becomes, which car would you actually prefer? But the Aston Martin is actually less horsepower than the AMG GTC because it's built around the AMG GTS platform. And considering the S produces less horsepower and so does the Aston Martin Vantage, it's almost like, why would I actually consider that vehicle? So when you go down to the DB11, it too, if you get the V8 version, is based off, again, the AMG GTS platform. So it's just a different look. And now the question becomes, which car do I prefer more based off the look of the car? And they're all in the same price range when it comes to servicing costs and so forth. But the difference is when you look at the Aston Martin Vantage for insurance costs, the insurance cost on that car is averagely about $3,500 to $5,000 per year. And when you look at the DB11, it's actually a little bit cheaper. It's like $3,400 to $5,700 a year with the V8 platform. Now, myself personally, I know I would possibly consider trying to get the V12, but that car seems to be a nightmare, and I'll tell you why. So when you look at the Aston Martin DB11, the known issues with the Aston Martin DB11, it has cooling system malfunctions. The car is prone to overheating, cooling leaks, electrical and connectivity problems. The infotainment system has glitches. There are known battery drain problems because there's intermittent system failures and things that should be off that actually drain the system. The car has transmission issues with rough shifting and power loss. And the interior trim typically has problems where it's not lining up correctly. The leather dash may actually be peeling some or coming up with bubbles going into it. And the AC vents have breakage and the AC system doesn't always work well. Now, that is a lot to be concerned about a car. So that makes the V12 not something I'm really concerned with, or it makes only the V12 kind of a deterrent, but the power that you get from the V12, you're talking about 600 horsepower and almost 600 pound-feet of torque from a V12 engine, it does seem very tempting, especially because you can find some of these V12 cars in the mid 90 range. And remember, these are just known issues. It doesn't mean every car is going to have that issue. And if you really want to look at it from that point of view, let's just look at the cars we looked at so far. The Porsche 911 4S has been known to have oil leaks, especially from the rear main seal. It's also been known to have coolant leaks from the pipes, water pumps, and the thermostats, electrical problems. It also has a battery drain system and infotainment glitches, and occasional issues with the PDK transmission. So it's not like the 911 is trouble-free. If you want to consider the Corvette C8, remember, it's been known to have transmission problems like rough shifting, delays, or an engagement, and in some places complete failure. We've also had some engine failures, to include several electrical glitches, including in the infotainment system freezing up, the battery being drained, interior and exterior build quality with leather peeling up, bubbles in the leather, the panels not lining up, rattling, paint imperfections, and so forth, with issues with the trunk, the front, and so forth. So it's not like these cars are bulletproof and haven't had their issues as well. So at the end of the day, every car you look at has some form of issues. You just have to decide what you're actually willing to take on. These would be the basic cars I would look at, but if I actually floated around that 110,000 range, which I spoke about before, there are two more cars I think deserve honorable mention, and I'll tell you why. And that to me would be the Acura NSX. The Acura NSX is generally considered one of the most reliable supercars on the market. So when we talk about imperfections and what have you heard about the Acura NSX, other than some owners complaining about premature battery drainage from the hybrid system and the brakes and rotors in some cases actually glazing over or cracking due to tracking, which if you're not going to track shouldn't be a very concerning issue, there has been some suspension failures. But other than that, you're talking about a fuel pump and some brake light malfunctions. So the Acura NSX actually would be a nice car to consider. So when it comes to the Acura NSX, they say the average insurance cost is anywhere between $1,800 and $3,100 per year, with the high being $5,000. They say the average oil change per year is about $354, which most people can get the annual servicing for the car done anywhere between $500 and $1,000. The hefty six-figure price tag may actually make this car a deterrent, because you can find several in the low range, but they also have higher miles, which means you can expect to do more repairs along the line. They say the normal preventive maintenance cost is somewhere between $1,300 and $2,600 a year, with the average 5-year ownership cost of $8,400. If you multiply that times 2 to the 10-year cost, we can say that's somewhere right around $16,500, which puts it in a basic range for everything else, depending on what type of servicing needs to be done and when. So looking at an Acura NSX, which can projectly have the lowest insurance cost, but it will have the highest purchase cost, we're talking about over the course of 3 years, I can end up spending $13,000 on owning the Acura NSX. That's a very interesting option. Now, on the backside, because many of you say, why would you consider Acura NSX? Let's just look at the Audi R8, which is another, as I would say, honorable mention, because the Audi R8 typically has normal oil change costs between $500 and $1,000, depending on the location. The average maintenance cost is $1,500 per year, and the average insurance cost is between $2,400 and $6,500, with most people paying somewhere between $3,000 and $4,400. So I have not actually got a quote on this car, but again, it's up there in price range. You can find some Audi R8s within $110,000 to $120,000 price range, which I said is an honorable mention. So you're talking somewhere again around $9,000, with repair costs being somewhere right around $7,000 to $8,000 over the next 3 years. So literally, we're talking about another $16,000 ownership cost to own this car over the course of 3 years, possibly. And then the last thing I would consider or just mention just for many of you so you can have an understanding of why I brought this cars into equation, is the C806. So the average insurance cost for the C806 is somewhere between $3,800 and $6,000 a year, depending on driving specifications of the vehicle, with it going up to $8,000 per year. The Z06 actual insurance range is one of the highest. The annual repair cost for the C806 is between $1,000 and $2,000. They say the course over a 5-year ownership window can be $7,500 to $13,000. Minor services or basic services can run you anywhere between $700 and $2,400 a year. And over the course of 5 years, they're saying the ownership cost for maintenance and normal routine maintenance based off what needs to be done or can go wrong will be somewhere between $7,500 and $13,000. If you double that, you're saying somewhere between $15,000 and $27,000 for owning a Z06 over the course of 10 years. This is why I bring this up, because when you start to look at these numbers, and I'm not going to dive specifically into what repairs and so forth, but when you look at these numbers based off tire replacements and so forth, and we're not even adding in your insurance costs, but the basic repair costs over a 10-year window or a 5-year window, the C806 is really not a cheap car to own. So when we mention these other supercars that people don't like to consider because they say it's highway robbery or you'll go broke trying to own them, the C8 platform isn't that far off. And that's why I bring them up. And I want to also follow up by saying this. When it comes to the Audi R8, the Audi R8 also has known AC problems, which means the AC system typically goes out every 20,000 miles. That's a known issue for the Audi R8. But it's not an easy repair cost based off where things are actually stored in the cabin compartment. The same thing comes to the C8 platform. When they sit there and talk about oil pump replacement and things of that nature, I know we have a dry sump system for some things and so forth, but when they talk about a lot of these parts and their location in the car, and just to get one piece repaired on if it goes bad, they're talking about $1,700 for a repair. I know people are going to say that's what an aftermarket warranty is for, and the same goes for all these other cars. You get an aftermarket warranty to help cover some of these costs. But I just want you to be aware that this is the information that's put out there. This is the information you can look up on Google and so forth, that the repair costs for many of these cars that we own and we think we are in a good space, if you're not driving a car, of course, your costs will go down. But that goes the same with any of these other cars, or should I say supercars, that we are mentioning in this conversation. So just be aware that when a lot of times when you say owning the supercar is a bad way to go, they all have their own known issues. A lot of the car's known issues do correspond with overheating when it comes to supercars, but the C706 had the same prone issues. The C8s have not been known to do them as of yet, especially the base C8 doesn't really have an overheating problem. The C8Z06, from my understanding, does not have an overheating problem, but let's just be real. The Mercedes AMG GTR, which we did not speak about, has a possible overheating issue. So those are things to be aware of. So if you're looking to get a car, and I'm just explaining to you, this is the things I look at when I go to get a car. I look at known issues. I look at insurance costs. I look at maintenance costs. I try to see what maintenance is required when. That way, when I look at the cars, I try to see Carfaxes and see what maintenance was already performed. That way, it eliminates some of the costs I would have to spend. And at the end of the day, I'm just trying to target what will be the most well-tamed vehicle I can buy on the used market, and what will cost me the least, or the estimated least, to own over the timeline I want to own it. That's just my thoughts on my process. ICNV Drivers Edition. go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Join the ICNV Driver Edition community. Like I stated before, we are an interactive community, which means if you hit me up on any one of my social media platforms or in the comments below, I'll do my best to respond. And if the topic you bring up is interesting enough, just like this one, I may even shoot a video on it. But don't forget, we're also a community of car enthusiasts that love to drive cars to make you turn your head that aren't your everyday people movers. If that sounds like you, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. We got more interesting content coming your way, and you don't want to miss out. But don't forget, we were all made in his image and given dominion over the world, which means we weren't just meant to be. So chase your dreams, build your visions, never ever give up, and embrace your own identity. It is okay to be unique. He's not done with you, and he's definitely not done with me. You were given everything that you need to achieve your goals, accomplish your dreams, and become the best version of you that you can be. Just remember to stay humble, stay focused, and stay blessed. And I'll see you in these streets. Peace.